This is beautiful. This is absolutely fantastic that you've all turned up. This is the first spring reading of the Centre for Poetry and Poetics reading series. We've got quite a few people online as well, so welcome to you too. We've got, so I can see that a lot of you have never done this before, so I'm just gonna quickly tell you what we do. We've got writers here. I'm trying to multitask. We've got writers every once a month, approximately, who especially come to sort of share their work, their research, specifically with our creative writing students or anybody who is interested in creative writing, as well as lots of people from Sheffield and further afield or afar. We've got 4, if I can, some people are funny with the word poets, but we've got 4 poets here. Is that okay to say? It's like, I know that some people write poetry and say they are not poets otherwise, but it is like huge. Well, we chatted about this with level 1 students, like, why don't we like announcing to the world that we are poets? But anyway, some people are very proud to say that. Some kind of shy away from calling themselves that. But anyway, we've got 4 poets here today. We've got Susie Wilson, we've got Anthony Rowland, we've got Tom Branfoot, and Jazmine Linklater. Linklater? However, okay. Or it is Linklater. Yeah. Okay. And I think that will be the order of the readings. What I asked, because you are quite a lot of you here, creative writers, I've asked the writers to introduce a little bit their work to you, sort of translate it or decipher it in whatever educational or pedagogical, into some sort of pedagogical content, so that it makes sense to you, or you can learn from it, or it's a sort of a little crutch to be able to follow the readings otherwise in medias res texts. I'm going to introduce the 4 readers. Shall I just introduce all the 4 of you in one go, and then you won't have to see me again, or 2 and then introduction and then another 2? Anyway, I'm going to introduce Susie first. Susie Wilson is half a poet, half a tutor, half clown. Okay. And Susie is a Scottish auDHD writer living here in Sheffield. She's published 2 pamphlets altogether so far, Nowhere Near as Safe as a Snake in Bed. That was a 2024 Verve publication, which won the Disabled Poets Prize Best Pamphlet 2022, and Skin the Rabbit, which is a slightly more recent 2025 publication. Susie and I is spending a year writing and recording long poems. That's a funny phrase, the long poems. What's a long poem? Anyway, a long poems about the Don and the Spey rivers, including collaborating with musicians and other performers funded by the Arts Council. She mentors, teaches for writing East Midlands Beyond and Spectrum, and facilitates Manchester Poetry Library's sub-club, now also monthly, at Sheffield Central Library. She lives with advanced melanoma. After Susie, I think the agreement was that Anthony will read, who has published 4 poetry collections. The Land of Green Ginger, that was a Salt publication, came out in 2008. I'm a Magenta Stick Against By Salt, 2012. M by Arc, 2017. And Cardbrog, also by Arc Press, so Arc Publishing. This was a 2023 collection. Rowland received an Eric Gregory Award from the Society of Authors in 2000, and he was awarded the Manchester Poetry Prize in 2012. He was invited to record work for the UK Poetry Archive in 2009 and the Lyric Line, which is a Berlin-based online literary platform, isn't it? I only know this because I recently translated something for them into Hungarian. That happened in 2014. The Dutch government elected him as a UK Poetry Ambassador for 2012. His poetry was read on national television and shown on screens at Schiphol Airport and Amsterdam Central Station. So I'm going to stop there because it will be otherwise too many biographies for you in one go. Huge welcome to Susie.
So, look, I have a face, which is a good start. Thank you very much for having me here today. I am going to read a little bit from Nowhere Near as Safe as a Snake in Bed, also Skin the Rabbit, and a little bit of new work as well. This whole thing about me being part clown is wholly true. And on Sunday night this week at Sight Gallery, I will be doing a scratch show of the year's worth of work, writing about rivers, which is partly in clown, partly in poetry. Involves some drawing, stuff like that. So if you're interested in that, it's under the heading of River Clown Energy Fields. And the first half of that is an exhibition in the space with sound recordings attached. So this book, Nowhere Near as Safe as a Snake in Bed, the title comes from the fact that my wife is terrified of snakes and regularly checks for them under the bed. And it deals with the fact that, unfortunately, I live with what's now called advanced melanoma, but it's actually stage 4. And you can be happier about that than it sounds, because I'm going to be 50 on Thursday and I'm still doing really well. And there's none of it detectable in me right now. It's just never curable. So that was the disability that qualified me for this prize for this book, not the fact that I have autism and ADHD. I'd just like to make that really clear. And I'm going to read 2 poems from it. The first one is about the day when they offered me gene therapy, because these days, if you have a particular gene in your body, you can take some pills that will act on it. So I'm actually lucky because I'm a mutant. I have this mutant gene, and that meant I could take this year of pills. Things you need to know are that in Ovid's Metamorphoses, threatened people tend to change. Papillonoidea are butterflies. Why the hell I ever put that word in a poem, don't know. And adjuvant means to help in advance. What would you do? The gene therapy consultant is breathtaking in her beauty. She emerges from her room to greet new patients in orange. She seems almost all orange, drawing you towards her sweet, bright fruit down a clean white tunnel corridor. You alight on a chair, temporarily stunned by this segment of promising health, so confident, demonstrating itself. Pre-pandemic plastic gowns and masks, nothing rustles except for her skirt. You are aroused, but probably by fear, however kindly she says, "Hello, Susan." You are allowed to laugh, by the way, actually. You have to say that to people writing about cancer. I should have said, "Oh, sorry, cancer." There we are. What you hear next is, "I am Dr. Arber. You've been teaching Ovid's Latin, so you expect a tree, but the contexts of this meeting are all wrong. She is not a shrub from 2,000 years ago. She won't suddenly become, mid-consult, a river or a constellation you can use to navigate. Nor is she a feeding bowl in a zoo pavilion built to show and contain Papillonoidea. She is a medical expert softening her exterior before commencing complex explanations of how her special interest, adjuvant gene therapy, may buy you time to stop the melanomas grubbing inside your shins. It is their life cycle we want to turn off, prevent their genes doing a new job on you, Halt militant proteins, determined to hatch once warm, then caterpillar along, eating their way out of your lungs, breasts, bone, or brain. Stopping the monster from splitting to shed its skin, even once, would be a triumph, as far as you are concerned. No more pupae, please. And while the beautiful doctor talks, clouds of probabilities flutter around her office. Butterflies circling your heads in swift loops of likelihoods, which you hardly understand. Then one fact sits for a moment on your wrist. This therapy won't stop death. The data doesn't support that conclusion, Susan, merely that it helps lessen risk. The fact slowly opens and closes its wings. Oh, sad poem. A live person. I always get told off by my wife for comforting the audience too much. It did actually go into my brain, and then Sheffield got it out again because they have an incredible thing called the gamma knife, where they point 192 rays at the bits in your head and zap it. So, you know, that's well done, Sheffield. There is a poem in this book about that, actually, which is to do with the physics of whether the sun is an event or a place. But I'm not going to read that. I'm going to read one after Emily Dickinson. Sorry, Emily. And this one is about immunotherapy, which is the later treatment I had, which is really keeping me alive now. I finished it for a year. And it teaches your immune system to kind of take off the disguise of cancer cells so that your own immune system can attack it. But the problem is there's no way of tracking melanoma in the body. So I had to actually draw it. And while I was in hospital, I took to life drawing it. So I'd like get my leg out and a big piece of paper, and I'd be like, here we go, map of the leg, drawing the bits, 21 of them crawling at my leg. And that's kind of behind what's going on in this poem here. And the last important thing to say is a man at the Real Computer Shop on Ecclesall Road told me that this medicine is made out of the genes of, made out of the ovaries of Chinese short-tailed hamsters. There's a taxidermy warning, sorry. I don't think they actually make it out of hamsters anymore. I think they did like the first time. Hope is a thing with cells. Okay. They're going to wonder what the hell's this about now, aren't they? Hope is a thing with cells, after Emily Dickinson, in praise of immunotherapy. It's 8:15 in the morning and I'm Googling Chinese hamster taxidermy because buying the animal whose ovaries have grown my biologic treatment and doing life drawings of it is going to save me. This is hope, the shape it comes in this morning. Mouse taxidermy holiday rodent, taxidermy mouse in bathtub, real mouse in bathtub fun, end of days taxidermy mouse, all available for real, and they were. Sacrificed mouse taxidermy and taxidermy mouse plans of world domination. Great prices, fast delivery. I can buy my way out of cancer on Etsy with style, bid my way on eBay out of bad directions my forking life might take. Bungle some kind of bogus altar together to keep me safe while I wait for the bazaar of modern science to change my immune system's cells. Wet specimen Chinese dwarf hamster offered for sale, turns out had a tumour, not that one then, or stuff it myself, put it out for the garden death gods, please eat her, save me. Back to Pinterest, next. Taxidermy dwarf hamster by precious creature, cute necklace, just yuck. A taxidermist is the keeper of a quiet zoo. Yeah, very quiet. I could be a noiseless patient if I'm not careful. But what can you do? I can't control what's stuffing me. My Chinese hamster ovary proteins are now romping on the loose, silently replacing programmed death cell 1, I hope. And that's enough of that misery. This tiny little thing here is Skin the Rabbit, and it was a free verse exclusive last year, would you believe? It's 9 of my MA poems. So I thought you might like to hear a couple of them because they came from that course. They're feral little bloody things, that's what the editor called them. There's a long poem in there, which is Skin the Rabbit, that's about rites of passage, fucking, that sort of thing. I'm not going to read it. But you can get it online from the Braag for £1, which is actually just under 10p a poem. So I recommend that. Instead, I think I'm going to read a poem that Caroline Duffy absolutely loathes the title of.
Just the title.
Yeah, she loved the poem, but the title's pretentious. Anyway. So are you ready? I'll read this as pretentiously as I possibly can. This poem was me trying to explore what it's like to be autistic with hyperperception. Thus spake Bone. Bone is not stone, is not still. White is not colour, is light. Bone is not black, is not absence of light. Hollow bird bone was flight. Sheep skull is bone, eyes without sight. Moon is not stone, moon is bone eye in black socket. Owl is white bone, hollow moon bird in flight. So if you like that, you know where to get the rest of them. And now I'm going to read some things from the year of Develop Your Current Practice work I've been doing. Fortunately, 2 of these pieces have just come out in Tears in the Fence, which means I can read them without thinking I'm jeopardising my future publication. And if anyone wants to know about how to get those grants on the DYCP, I'm always happy to help people. 4 people helped me by giving me their applications. 2 people gave me 20-minute Zooms to tell me how to do it. It helped me enormously. You can get a whole spreadsheet of the previous people who were awarded the funding off the Arts Council's website. So if you want to go for it, do. It was paused in the autumn, but it opens again in April. So what I've been doing is going around exploring what it might be like to write long poems about big things while disabled. That was the title. And the big things turned out to be rivers, but also reading phenomenology and working with mentors like Mark Goodwin, but also, perhaps slightly weirdly, Kate Fox. When I sat down to write this stuff, I came out with these meditative, descriptive things, but also a whole bunch of poems came out in clown, and that's what this mix of stuff is. Washford Bridge, over the Don, Attercliffe, Sheffield, S4, 7WT. Now and then. That refers to the fact that this place used to be used as a wide meadow, water meadow, where people would fish for salmon. And then they dumped a whole load of slag and coal heap on it in the Industrial Revolution, and now it's being rewilded. So this poem flits between the now that it is and the then that it was before. On the way to salmon pastures, pause under, salmon pause in water meadow. Blue, bright sun, sky, early April, strange heat, UV. Light heat, April, blue, bright. Dust, industrial road, cut between buildings, wash. Water wends through sandy grass. Ford bridge appears as sheer sides drop, light spreads. Low slope into fish deep. River enters the picture, so does a woman, liquid. Fished for apprentices, chucked out of a mug, out of warehouse back in stream, heron, dipper, kingfisher, orange, like tea in channel ale over silt, babies and bath, water. Tip, goldcrest, wren, nest, fish cradle. A salmon appearing to pause is matrix of scales and muscle flex in force of river, flow, thalweg, eddy, edge, ripple, back in still pool, still moving, constant flank and tail, must move, gills, expanding oxygen exchange from air, from water, from atmosphere, this slippery, fat, not flattened thing, muscling in the drink, swimming still, staying unseen in the shade of detritus, in overhang the useful edges of pasture. How will you know the fish? Hook mouth, silver skin, shadows swim. How will you know the fish is here? Travel up dark channels, not showing, not showing. Otherwise thrash in mass before Weir's gates, leap. Were there ospreys here? 5 buzzards over scrap. New rocks placed as cover for juvenile par. And it's a time of celebration because they found the first baby salmon in the Don for years and years and years last summer, which is really cool. And that's down to all the work that the Don River Trust and the Wildlife Trust have done. Clown washes up. Clown sees a woman chucking tea from her mug into the river. Out of a warehouse full of housewares, kitchen, worktops, floors and doors. Clown chucks a woman from her mug into the river. Tries to build a house of floors and doors. Tries to use the river as a worktop kitchen. Clown tries to redirect the river like traffic. Stands on handy traffic island, silt, gravel, grass, white gloves, midstream, hand, whistle, power stance. Water parts around Clown's legs and through. Is everything we do canute? And I will finish there. Thank you.
Thanks, Susie. It was great. Thanks, Aggie, for inviting all 4 of us to read this evening. Thanks, the audience for coming. Delighted to read here because I've known about the Centre of Poetry and Poetics for a few years now. People, associated with it, writers like Aggie, Adam's critical work, admired for many years. And I'm sure most of you know that Adam co-edits the wonderful Black Box Manifold as well, which I've published in a few times. Writers associated with the Centre of Poetry and Poetics, like Geraldine Monk, who very much influenced my last 2 collections. So I'm really happy to be here in Sheffield. I do have one poem about Sheffield, which I'll read in a bit, but I'll start with a poem from my last collection, which is called Calderbrock, which is named after a suburb of Manchester near to where I live. It's the medieval name for that place, Calderbrock. But I'll start with a poem which is based in Haworth and Bradford, basically, like Tom Branfoot, a poet we'll be reading later. We were brought up in Bradford. And one of the things that I did when I left school is that I worked for Bradford City Council for a while. So as well as being a road sweeper going up and down Otley Road for many moons, I was also a bin man, and one of our rounds was round Haworth. So we used to zoom round there quite early in the morning, as the bin rounds do, and then just go to somebody's house in the afternoon who lived near the station in Haworth. So this poem is partly about that, but it's also about when I came across a few years ago a book by Elizabeth Gaskell, Victorian novelist that some of you will have heard of, who wrote a biography of Charlotte Bronte. Just called The Life of Charlotte Bronte. And I was kind of amused reading this book because it begins famously with quite a long opening chapter about Haworth and about all these people from round Haworth. They're all descended from Vikings. They're all semi-barbarian, a bit savage, a bit naughty. They don't like strangers, all that kind of thing. And Gaskell, even at the time, was kind of reprimanded for kind of contributing to what became the Bronte myth of the Brontes arising from this semi-savage place in the middle of nowhere near any towns in Yorkshire or Lancashire. So this poem is called Worth, and it kind of melts together memories of Haworth growing up there with some words and phrases from Elizabeth Gaskell's book. So it's called Worth, and it starts with a line epigraph from Life of Charlotte Bronte, which goes, "Manchester and Leeds, where are they? It's quite a long poem, so I'll just read some extracts from it. Sleuthhounds pursue their money and purse against the hoarfrost, the hale men lingering custom, spinning at the great wheels until factories crash the dawn. Declivities tend to brutalise, the roads draining as sloop rinks to magnets of secluded hamlets where you stare to alter a pump. The bill is gel in your folding plans. Your crime was only a lock, dreaming of saddle girths in mud, halting the precinct with a face conducted under pressure, sizzling above the pans of meat, your days. He stays as a bastion of exactitude. Lichen blooms on slate like jellyfish crowns, his silence rare as a vendace, where black clings as drain pipes, your stern blinked in his violence. Norse-bred natives until cholera, peculiar forms of population, a race, sagacity and dogged power, as Chisley pins the valley to light crag, the deciduous sway. Affections are not widespreading, amenities of curt and tone, the blunt squalls and hill air, rough as this vinegar, the pain freezing our drinker backs to mash. Hardening as mint cake, the people turn addle and die among the sumphishness of fire hogs, the defibrillator hung as relic by those panting over stamps, the wreck divining the branches. Strangers came from beyond Burnley, finial teeth lodged their slate, their box a lintel punched with crosses, their clouds weigh on Widdet tarn, carts distort the angled panes. Rain intensifies the tiles, the deadening orange boys, the swell of beams that need sticking, reminiscences that stand a pillow, sentimental stations will be made. Okay, so that's Worth from Calderbrock. The next poem I'll read, I need a drink of water before it. This is from my second collection, M, for Manchester. Second collection I'll read from tonight. This is a Sheffield poem. I've been waiting about 20 years to read my Sheffield poem in Sheffield, and I finally get the chance. So thanks to everybody for allowing that. It's called I Changed in Sheffield. And this came out of the fact that about 10 years ago, while I was still living in Manchester, I made the insane decision to take a job in Lincoln. So I used to spend not insane because of Lincoln, I hasten to add on the live stream. Lincoln's great, love the university, but it's a long way from Manchester. So I spent far too much time of my life waiting on a Sheffield train station for the train to arrive from Norwich to take me back to Manchester, but it's always late because it's 5 hours from Norwich, etc. I was having those traumas replaying as I came with Tom on the train today to Sheffield. There was one moment where I was kind of sat on the station looking out on the kind of railway lines going out the station. No trains, of course. And I was thinking, I wonder if anybody else has written a poem about Sheffield train station, which I'm sure loads of people have written poems about that. But the only one that came to mind as I was there on the platform was one by poet Philip Larkin called Dombey and Son, which contains the immortal lines, I changed at Sheffield and ate an awful pie. So this is my kind of, this is my response to Larkin's two lines from Dombey and Son. The poem's called, as in the Larkin poem, I Changed in Sheffield. I changed in Sheffield and ate an awful pie. I changed in Sheffield and ate rain. I ate Sheffield and changed a pie. I changed at Sheffield and ate stationery. You are what you change in Sheffield. The state of Sheffield is an awful pie. Eat pies and change yourself into Sheffield. Peter Piper picked a peck of Sheffield pies and died. Sheffield is changing into an awesome size. Size 14 shouldn't change at Sheffield. I charged at Sheffield with only a pie. I entered Costa Coffee with the sole intention of choosing a pie, but was trickled the treats of blue muffins. Muffins like fly cemeteries, a cross between muffins and food, fair trade chocolate and several varieties of Maltesers, biscuits, biscotto, totty wafers and a large mug of jam, but nothing pie-like, no tart offering, tartan gaping or even a flat tort. So I left. I changed at Sheffield and Norwich opened up to me in this can of oozing passengers, too sad to be late. Change I into Sheffield to underline personal tragedy. I changed in Sheffield when the south turned to mizzle. I changed Sheffield into a metaphor due to electrical work. I turned Doncaster into Tenerife, but only on Sundays. Beware the sliding platform of your wet creams. Due to the jet conditions, please trail the vapour of your neighbour's cigarette. Due to the net timing of your journeys, please despair under this arrow. Change platforms to misconnections at will. Only connect your legs to the bridge during maintenance. The sky caved in when I boarded a diesel unit. Change to the slow train of Hope Valley, where Kinder Scout sucks cloud and New Mills trains the precipice. Slow the axles to flood the moor, the tractors down with unfathomable sheep spilled onto cabbages, or just stay in Sheffield forever. Marry a platform and eat a midnight track. I changed in Sheffield and ate an awful pie. More water required after that for the last poem, which is back to my collection Calderbrock. I'll read part, a bit like the poem Words that I start with. I won't read all of this. I'll read a kind of section from it. This is a poem called the Investment, or sequence called the Investment Manager's Report, which I wrote a few years ago in response to those egregious figures, I think I can say that on the live stream, that contributed to the financial crisis of 2007 to 2008, including the wonderful guy Fred Goodwin. I don't know if any of you remember him. Your pockets do. He was the head of Barclays Bank until just before, actually, the financial crisis. He retired and escaped in time to a beach with his millions just before the financial crisis hit. I could say many things about Fred Goodwin. I'm sure he's listening. And two things about him. The first thing, that apparently in his Barclays office, he specially designed filing cabinets to have a slope on them at top so that nobody could put pieces of paper on top of the filing cabinet, because he said that created horrible mess. The other thing that he famously said, he once kind of exploded and said, "How can a man live off 3 million a year?" Make of that what you will. The other thing about this sequence, I should probably say, talking about writing process, I used to receive these letters from the bank about every 3 months, which I just used to studiously throw in the bin. But after a while, when I started writing this sequence, I kind of opened one of them and read it, and it was all about kind of stocks and shares and financial forecasts. And the more I read of these leaflets, the more bizarre the language that they use seemed to me. This really kind of anxious, semi-hysterical language about what the markets might do and how people across the globe might react. So quite a lot of those phrases make their way from those pamphlets into the final poem. So this is for Fred Goodwin, but also somebody else, Alan Greenspan. I'll just read the first one. It's called We Sponsored September. Dice as indices rarely cite the vendor. This table is commonly used to provide aid in your asset class as reality blooms like a pupil into understanding. Historical analysis is a forecast, but you must assume the entire risk to predict. We disclaim all warranties of originality, accuracy, completeness, timeliness, and non-infringement of a particular purpose. Wall, 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 wall. To me, that's a holy place. Do not accept errors or omissions. We sponsored September and it peaked. After that, mounting material polished its sell-off, while investors overwhelmed the overview. Listen, O gold pipes, to this Archimedes, squinting at the mirror like an equity market, buzzing in geopolitical issues and tissues, winding the fizzing blood of trained concerns. Smack it through liquidity into light and the chundering tongue, uncancelled debt. Jerome Powell suggests a hit, a line of pumice stone as his hawkish comments grew a sleeve. Party with this sponge, sell off November to the technology sector amidst concerns about hope implemented in an ever-widening China where major banks continue creeping their foamy edge. Polish your globes into waxy moons and pressure the oil into plunging food. Quantitative waning lowers its rose. Brexit works towards the UK's resignation as the market plunged October into May. Volatile as August, equities risked a douche and peak that fell into excessive fiction. Bring down the target to sentiment and oil me with the most unguent perfumes when Truss erodes the polls to power base. Robust as a tight Germany, GDP. Towel a dovish boost to prompted gains as apace China steams its measures, fueling the effect of a worry stem after the rupee discounted the Pacific and the Nikkei index hit a bellwether and sold October for Japanese steel. But the yen was weaker against a balloon, so slow down, tit for tat to bleak backdrop. China can fall as well as rise. A policymaker who proposes the overseas to the past and emerges into a settlement with a minibar at the time of custody of securities at the level of a target guaranteed to emerge. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Susie. Thank you so much, Anthony. Apropos Barclays and Sheffield train stations, you must know there is a poem on the Hallam University building. You haven't seen it? Guess who it was written by? Almost. No, no, it wasn't Caroline Duffy. It was Andrew Motion. It was a commission poem for Hallam, but apparently he never visited the city. I'll leave you with that thought. Okay, that was absolutely amazing. So next two writers is or are Tom Branfoot, followed by Jazmine Linklater. Let me introduce them both. Tom is a poet and critic from Bradford and a writer in residence at Manchester Cathedral. He won the Northern Writers Award in 2024. and the New Poets Prize 2022. He organizes the poetry reading series More Song in Bradford, and is also the author of This Is Not an Epiphany. This was a book by Smith Doorstop, and Boar, which is Broken Sleep Books publication. Both books came out in 2023. His poem, A Parliament of Jets, was shortlisted for the Forward Prize for Best Single Poem very recently, which was last year, 2025. Volatile, his debut collection, is forthcoming with the 87 Press. So that's the introduction to Tom. After whom Jazmine is going to read, who is a poet and writer based in Manchester, where she's a regional editor for the online art writing platform Corridor 8. Jazmine's new poetry pamphlet is Snagged on Red Thread. This is or was or is a publication by Monitor Books. She's also currently undertaking practice-based research in art writing and acrostic encounters with us. But I can't see the Northern Writers Award. Some people, as you, sorry, but that was a different year because you won one. Oh, it was a co-won thing. Yeah. Oh, cool. Brilliant. Fantastic. So Jazmine's also the winner of the Northern Writers Award 2024. Also wanted to say before the two readings that what we normally the tradition is that because we've got 4 beautiful poetry collections here, they're also on sale. So what we do right after the two readings, once we finish, is that I'd like to invite you to have a chat with the writers. Sam Ladkin used to call it awkward mingling. I'm still calling it awkward mingling. Awkwardly mingle with our guests, ask them questions, buy their books, and have a fantastic time. Thank you.
Hello, everyone. Hi, Claire, as well. It's really nice being here. I've come to these readings loads, so it's nice to be standing here and reading with Anthony and Susie and Jazmine. So I'm going to read some poems from Volatile, which is my collection that's coming out in October. And this is a book about crisis and interconnection and how different crises interact with each other in terms of like economics, environmental stuff, political events, and also personal events, including my mum's alcoholism. And anyone that's grown up with an alcoholic parent will know the volatility of that. The word volatile comes from the Latin volare, and in the Middle English period, it was used to mean birds in plural. So if you look at the first English translation of the Bible, it says volatiles in place of birds. So that title gave me a way to sort of structure this book, which is a sort of web of poems that interact with each other. And running through the entire collection is a long poem called Monument, which is a pun on monument, which sort of means archive, and mum. So I'm going to read that. It's sort of in fragments throughout the collection and interspersed with other poems. So I'm going to simulate that experience. I haven't done this before, so it might not work, but I'm willing to fail in front of all of you. So, yeah. If I don't say a title, then it's a long poem. Monument. In the manuscript of Hollingsworth's Mancuniensis at Chetham's Library, a blank page before the frontispiece bears the graphite inscription Mum A6.53, a corruption of mun used to signify filing in the muniments room of Manchester Cathedral. Since its foundation in 1421, the capitular archives had been misplaced, displaced, and replaced as frequently as the collegiate church was dissolved and reformed. The missing archives of the late 16th century led to erroneous accounts that nothing remarkable occurred relating to the church in the 1560s. Hollingsworth's history of the town, written in the beginning of the civil wars, is the earliest surviving record of the city. In it, he inventories each stained glass window ruined during the wars and documents when the Lord sent his destroying angel in the form of the plague. Additionally, diarising extreme weather events such as the sudden and terrible rain where in 2 hours space, 3 channels ran down the streets like great rivers. His death was celebrated by an entire day of fasting. Since viewing the manuscript, I keep thinking about this erroneous inscription, Mum, repeated on the marbled end paper page bearing the ex libris. Mother Triptych 1. She was fine, by which I mean she sustained no lasting injuries. I floated on the landing, pigeon-chested one after-school evening, chambered by divorce in isolate rooms. Someone must have rung an ambulance at an unwound hour of a flowerless month. I would have helped her, will have shadowed and waited for discharge, reckoning feathers, palmed blister packs. 2. Buckling into the wall, you spill my minor life from the rim of your cup. I want to piece the smashed plates, squeezed words like toothpaste unput-backable. Who am I to say you faith the wrong things? That credibility means more than dinner from the floor. 3. Your third Christmas alone. Capillaries Roquefort veined in stale columbaritude, silvered beloveds smoked out like vermin. I never understood it. We oscillate between villainy, nests laid bare by varicose trees, farmers tender fire to pallets, garden waste manure, our new house in the pasture, bats varnish the night orchard. I count each tectonic breath. Memory is kind, a kind of unlistening. In No Archive Will Restore You, Julieta Singh references Derrida's archive fever, noting that etymologically, arc is the place from which everything emerges, the location from which the thoughts and things of the world spring forth. It is also the place of authoritative law. Arc is the womb and matriarch. Mum, this is what I call you, informally resonant as class determines, contrasting its other definition as silent, root sound of all language, tethering pre-linguistic to ghosts. Mamucium, the Roman four in Castlefield, from early Brittonic mam meaning breast or mama for mother, associated with the local river goddess. Places change when you know them. Magic depletes. Her house holds darkness in its walls. She offered it to rent, but there was too much jaundice and stray futures. Natural phenomena. Miss the electrical storm, the day you fled, muled blue carriers to the field. No identification, bottles cowbell clinking, arborescent blisters in an obscure sky. Economists argue for beauty in recession. A scold of jays delineate the copse. Shock chorus streaming in the astrolabe. Miss the blue moon to sickness and heat lightning. Natural phenomena elude the social womb too combative. A white wall primed for projection, obtunded by nominal moons. Eyes open like mussels, old flux clinging to unopened shells. Call me when you can. My mum has been signed off. The past year, her eyes carried panniers like a pack horse. She was not listening to the body, disavowing its biological responses as if they were gadflies swarming around the pain. I've been writing about her illness since a diagnosis of hemochromatosis, collecting loose leaves of notes in a memorandum. The blood condition is hereditary. It likely occupies my iron-bound chest. What further information is helixed away inside the only sun, the destroying angel of blood? Time loop. We were both awake, walking, talking about family, bursting like the flooded weir flung backwards through districts of rhyme. We are living through dangerous times. You said politics is stuck on a negative spiral near the Pompidou last winter. The patisserie worker said c'est catastrophe as I fumbled my order in French. I know what that means, I said. The spillway overflowing with crud and moral abandon. I was out accessing the remaining red light along the riverbank. In the model village, I lost all pleasure. Long-tailed tits winter in non-domicile shrubs. Inflation reaches the evergreen and everything gained is. I wanted to clear some space in my head, so I clogged it up with every conceivable form of media. Is this the end of wellness? Roofs of unaffordable houses quaint with snow, a riot of stars in the protected sky. In the crisis, I was up to my poor shoulders in snow. I clogged my head with protest. The moon puffed a backlog of smoke. Hollingsworth had an almost modern preoccupation with the weather. His meteorological entries were disregarded as irrelevant, lacking weft. Yet who can dampen the significance of weather in the rainy city, atmosphere awash with rivers? Moist conditions were supposedly conducive to the cotton trade, as fibres become brittle in dry air, yet stay strong and stretchy with the correct humidity, perfect for spinning into yarn. During the Lancashire cotton famine, after years of unprecedented growth and surplus production, impoverished mill workers refused to touch raw cotton picked by enslaved Africans on plantations. Abraham Lincoln expressed his gratitude to the working men at Manchester, praising their sublime Christian heroism in facilitating the foul blot's erasure. Anno 1616, Hollingsworth recounts Lambard's flood, in which waters rose, redacted, yards plume above the ordinary course. It is an easy matter with God to drown a town, yea, a world. At university, she rang manic after lectures, drunk in grief's undertow, keening to her only begotten, palliated living rooms drowned out with radio and phone. Each midday call took its toll, hollowed me like a knave. I turned her name over at the pub, flooded with wet friends. There are 22 steps leading to the muniments room at Manchester Cathedral, one for every victim of terror during the arena bombings of 2017. A pebble distance from the north porch, there are no coincidences here, the archivist tells me. Though the stone spiral staircase was constructed in 1889 as a memorial to the late James Craven, financed by his children. The room itself, tumorous with damp. Needing clean air, I go out to the glade of light, haloing the medieval quarter, to voice each name, observe a powder blue nuthatch curl around a maimed branch. Despite the goodwill of archivists, it remains impossible to know the actuality of one's birth when complications coalesce with sedatives. There was blood. I was torn caesural from the womb. We both survived. In procedural infancy, caesarean sections were performed exclusively on dying mothers to increase the state population. Disregarding the anecdote, Julius Caesar was born this way. Its origin comes from the Latin verb cadere, meaning cut or hewn. There are a handful of buildings I know well enough to blueprint. Here, the hanging bridge, the hurt, the glinting vortex. To archive something is to consign it to forgetting. In go the ghosts, the glade, paracetamol and diaries. In go the aftermath, the frontispiece, disoriented animals, and you. Thank you.
That was like absolutely amazing, Tom. God, I love the poetry readings. Thank you guys for your readings. Like, it's just so embarrassing and great that we all get to do this together. I am going to, this is weird. I've never stood behind one of these before. I am going to read from this poem that I wrote and published towards the end of last year. I don't know, jokes are over now, because this is like getting harder for me to read from every time I do it not for some reason. And I still don't know how to introduce it. As Aggie mentioned, I'm an art writer as well, and I'm an editor on an art magazine, and my poetry has always engaged with like visual imagery and visuality in different ways. And I started writing this poem after October 7th in 2023, because obviously like the way that our relation with images here in the West, in our like impotence, just totally changed overnight. I don't know if you guys like had a similar experience to me, but this is about my experience of that. And when I was writing it, I was never going to publish it. It was like I was working on it for myself, because obviously poetry is an inadequate response to genocide. But also, like, for some of us, like, poetry is our life. Like, poetry is my life. Like, my friends are poets. It's how we work through stuff. We have to believe in this art form that is really rare, that, like, flies under the radar of capital in, like, ways that other art forms don't. So, like, we also have to keep using it. So, yeah, I eventually have published this, and I'm going to read to you from it. It's one long poem. It sort of writes through like the experiences of gaming as a kid, different image complexes. Yeah, I don't know. The poem says stuff. I'm just going to set a timer for 10 minutes, and I'll stop reading when the timer goes off. No, you just finish the whole book. I'll read the whole book. Yeah, we'll stay here till tomorrow. Yeah, okay. So, like you said, please, we've got copies of our books. Please buy them. We work on them for you to read them. Okay, this is from Snagged on Red Thread. I thought I'd spend the war on terror in a red brick suburb, watch white patches spreading over eyes, umbrellas popping open on my phone. But crimson keeps seeping in from the edges, plunging a narrative into the harbour, its depiction persisting. Did you see those army guys at school today, outside the hall? Painted from the top edge of the camera slate all the way horizontal across the screen. We've all touched the same desires, doubling background elements in, leaves rustling, clouds of smoke gently rising, mass shooting, wild garlic, cherry blossom bombed hospital. And these days of ours, time mangled with the windows open, now closed, now approximate misremembering. But understanding isn't separate from contact with others, is a shape made by that relation. How to work through this without coveting cultural capital, being seen to or not. What I said, get in here, take the high ground. The names and presences of teenage memory, friends inside that smoky room, the network of inferences it remembers. Julia pointing his gun at nothing. Brown dereliction glitching on screen as red edges accumulate heartbeats, engulfing all auditory, and we enter the body we can't see. Adrenaline flares the room's body. We've gathered the shapes of some meanings after school play, awaiting a future. But look, by hiding him, she regenerates health. That's how to have a perceptual shift with your eyes wide the whole time. Now watch our children's playless days of searching in the heat to fill the empty pan, the empty jug. This scrap of plastic tubing, now a toy, the paper kites all black, the missiles in the drawings. Now watch our daughter's adult mourning daily. How she places a kiss on her father's head, says the rights. Remember to blink, press X to reload. On the corner of St Anne's and Cross Street, under the bright yellow billboard where we found propaganda in its singular passive construction, we agreed it was dissident to make the language proliferate meaning, keep it multiple. We don't speak the language, no, only one word. Approximations like memory surface, bossa bossa, habibi, bossa bossa. Outside the old printworks, arrested for exposing discussion. Is it real what we're hearing? White fumes burst into flames, glow green in the dark, burn to the bone, yellow with, I'm sorry, forgive me, Habibi. Two presidents are shaking hands inside a rectangle that I glance up from, past the frame, where things are settled into gravity. The language slips. I turn off my phone, lay it face down, wait a while between stanzas. The pause doesn't resemble a wound. The thinker's eyes blank, processing the landscape until no longer car-keyed. But one thing next to another doesn't mean they touch. I saw a dark sky and tall battlements, tiny stars. It seemed far away and long ago, but hard and clear. Then huge dark things with wings cut off the stars. They started to fly towards me. They looked as if a war artist were making a sketch of them in chalks. This quadcopter holds a range of payloads. I make lightning through PAYE, donating 15% of my income for ejector seats, active interceptor systems, targeting lasers, weapon release cables, and rear fuselages in F-35, single-seat, single-engine, supersonic stealth strike fighters. It is not possible to set conditions on the use of these components. Along the course of the real, myths are traps. The poem can't alter the passing of the past. My mother was sitting on the edge of the sofa, my father standing in the middle of the room. Can I have a snack? I dropped my drawings on the table, but they didn't look. On TV, smoke crescendoed left of frame, then off. I believed I was understanding what I was seeing. Get up close to the glass, note the loose style, impressionistic, free, all dots and dashes, droning, droning, droning. But the workmanship of these is empire. Can I play soon? Let me get to checkpoint. If someone says, I haven't seen Julia for a while, and someone replies, she's gone to Israel to join the army, do you know what that means? To a teenager in 2008 in England, red soaking the screen, do you want to go? The dog's got me. Through dispersing cloud, concentric dark brown, nestled in grey, nestled in black, a total circle with full zero in the midst, a neon red carrot, flashing punctuation, hinging the invisible vacuum, suspended in seasonless ether. Into frame, spaces that were streets, crossed with telephone wires, TV aerials, some trees, a carcass of an angular old car, its innards since incinerated. Eyes focused through the viewfinder's red circumflex. You killed Cabrima, you killed Loboftus, you killed Metal Z. She makes him run, swaying barrel leads frame right repeatedly. Where is that? The Middle East. Yeah, but where? That's all it says. The other bit's in Russia. White flash buzz flickers, vision seeds to sound. We enter again the invisible body, the network of inferences we occupy, exhaling control, waterfall flowing as smoke rings, dispersing to clouds, contained by these walls, blue Royal Navy, bank blue, suggesting some future, some memories under the surface. Those soldiers were at school again today. Did you guys talk to them? Seems like a pretty sweet deal. Julia's gun bobs between gutted buildings, skeleton rooms, bleached meanings, near grayscale, visibility lines, places to hide, abundant fires, white shadows billowing off frame. Blinking arrow centers focus. You are hurt, get to cover. The screen completely red, but fading. 1, 2, 3, 4. Mother, I tried to keep my eyes shut for the baby's sake, but these scenes bored into need. On commuter bus windows, strangers' collected breath keeps on watering the wrong kind of dream, and now, inexplicably, daffodils, crocuses. Our baby is born emaciated, covered in a thick grey dust, 7,000 times, 15,000 times, 30,000 times, because I couldn't keep my eyes shut. And again, tomorrow's blue-hued, impotent morn bears pallid witness under office strip lights. I write another poem about myself. The children screaming in the gallery are exercising, looking for the edges. I stay quiet. The exhibition guide says the maker sewed up the slit in this skirt last century, says this dress from Ramallah, fire brick red with burgundy accents, was donated in haste. Says we know because of the flower sack panel making it fit, its blue UNRWA stamp snagged on red thread. Don't ask whose memory, detailed in coral and ruby. Am I giving the looking the room demands right? It traces a history through to commodification, 4 flowers each side of the neckline strung on the pixelated waves of their stems with rare golden highlights, reflecting, not emanating. Remember to blink. It is March. The wall text in the past tense. What sort of looking is this? Foreign moon, foreign rainbows, then lurex replaces metallics. Were they friends? Are the women in the film alive today? The opening book I reach for sprinkles mildew, dark spinal bloom, pink speckled white dust. The ability to stay in place, to moulder, to see my consciousness snagged on these compromised surfaces. How funny and ceaselessly things. For reading this book, I'm late for history. I didn't know. That man on the Transpennine train who could have a friendly face, clutching his plastic bag, catching your eye, he follows you carriage to carriage. Okay. Yeah, well, thanks for listening.
I told you to continue. Where are you? Never mind. I think that's actually quite a good trick for you to lure people into buying the book and reading the rest of it. Okay, just a couple of sentences from me to close. So we will have 2 more readings, hopefully 2 more readings this term. So the next one is coming up on the 29th of April, I think, around 6 o'clock. And that will be Ansgar Allan. It will be a triple book launch. So it will be Ansgar's new book called The Tongue Machine. Adam Pierce's new book, Lies Blurring Here. They all sound really cheerful. And Nancy Gaffield's new book as well. And then we will close the term in May with a reading by Camilla Nelson and Rhys Trimmer. So a huge thank you again to Anthony, Susie, Tom, and Jazmine. And here comes the time for the awkward conversations, the purchasing of the books, asking any questions, getting to know one another, I don't know, for an extra 10, 15 minutes. So thank you so much. Thank you for coming.